Nestled deep within the whispering woods, where ancient trees groaned secrets to the wind, lay the village of Little Hollow for generations. Life flowed like a gentle stream until the giants came. They emerged from the northern crags, not one or two, but a family of 3. Towering figures whose very footsteps shook the earth like small earthquakes. Their arrival shattered the peace. Homes trembled, livestock panicked, and the villagers lived in constant dread. Every distant rumble sent people scurrying indoors, hearts pounding against ribs like frantic birds. Fear became a thick fog choking the once bright spirits of Little Hollow. The elders spoke in hushed tones of ancient tales where giants devoured mountains, fueling the nightmares that now haunted every child and shadowed every adult face. A heavy silence, born of terror, settled over the village, broken only by the giants' earth-shaking movements. Amidst this fear lived a small girl named Elara, known more for her quiet observation than her voice. While others barricaded their doors, Elara watched from her tiny attic window. She noticed things others missed in their panic. The giants didn't seem angry. They seemed lost and deeply sad. Their enormous eyes, when glimpsed through the trees, held a bewildered sorrow. They moved clumsily, knocking over trees not out of malice, but because their size made the dense forest a confusing labyrinth. One evening, under a sky painted with streaks of orange and purple, Elara saw the smallest giant, barely taller than the ancient oak, trip and fall. The resulting tremor shook Little Hollow. But Elara also saw the giant child bury its face in massive hands, its shoulders shaking with silent sobs unseen by the terrified villagers below. A seed of understanding, fragile but persistent, began to sprout within her. Elara couldn't shake the image of the crying giant child. The village council debated building higher walls or digging deep pits, solutions steeped in fear. Elara knew they needed something different. Something gentle. Rummaging through her grandmother's old trunk, filled with forgotten treasures, her fingers brushed against cold, smooth metal. She pulled out a tiny silver bell, no larger than a walnut, attached to a faded blue ribbon. Her grandmother had whispered long ago that it was a heart bell. Its sound pure enough to soothe troubled spirits. Could such a small thing reach beings so vast? Holding the cool metal, Elara felt a flicker of desperate hope. It seemed absurd, yet the memory of the giant child's sorrow compelled her. That night, under a blanket of stars, she made her silent decision, waiting for a day when the giants seemed quieter, resting perhaps in a distant clearing. Elara slipped out before dawn. Dew soaked her shoes as she ventured deeper into the whispering woods than any villager had dared for months. The tiny bell clutched tightly in her hand. Her heart hammered against her chest, a frantic drum against the immense silence of the forest. She found the giants near the crystal falls, the parents sitting with slumped shoulders, the child giant listlessly tracing patterns in the soft earth, taking a breath that felt like swallowing fire. Elara stepped into the clearing. The giants stirred, their enormous heads turning slowly. The sheer scale of them, up close, stole her breath before fear could paralyze her completely. She raised the tiny silver bell high above her head and rang it with all her might. A single, pure, crystalline note pierced the morning air. It was astonishingly loud for such a small object, yet utterly unlike the harsh, frightening sounds the giants made. It hung in the silence, clear and bright as a captured star. The giants froze. The child giant stopped tracing patterns. The parents turned fully, their immense, sorrowful eyes focusing on the tiny figure and the source of that impossibly sweet sound. Elara, trembling but resolute, rang the bell again. Tingling, the sound seemed to shimmer around the giants, cutting through the fog of their own confusion and the villagers' fear. A profound stillness settled over the clearing, deeper than before, but now filled with wonder, not dread. The angry lines on the giants' faces softened, replaced by a look of startled awe. The child giant tilted its head, a sound almost like a sigh escaping its lips, driven by a courage she didn't know she possessed. Elara took one small step forward, then another. She kept ringing the bell, its clear notes weaving a fragile bridge across the impossible gap between her tiny world and there. She stopped a respectful distance away, looking up into their faces. The parent giants exchanged a glance filled with something like wonder. The child giant slowly, hesitantly, stretched out one enormous finger, not to crush, but to gently touch the air near the source of the enchanting sound Elara saw. Glistening like dewdrops on moss, tears welling. In the child giant's enormous eyes then, a single tear, as large as Elara's head, rolled down the weathered cheek of the giant mother, landing softly on the forest floor with a sound like a heavy raindrop. It wasn't a tear of anger, but of profound relief, of loneliness. Finally seen, the bell's sound had not commanded, but communicated. It spoke a language older than words, a song of peace, word of Elara's courage, and the astonishing silence of the giant spread through Little Hollow like wildfire, melting the ice of fear. Cautiously, villagers began to emerge. They saw not monsters, but gentle, weary creatures who flinched at sudden shouts but leaned towards the sound of Elara's bell or a softly sung lullaby. The giants, it turned out, were refugees, driven from their mountain home by a rockslide, lost and frightened by the dense forest and the tiny, scurrying beings who screamed at their every move. The tiny bell had been a key, unlocking understanding. Little Hollow didn't build walls. Instead, guided by Elara and her bell, they learned to communicate. They showed the giants paths wide enough to walk, brought offerings of fruits they loved, and played gentle music that reminded them of mountain winds. The giants, in turn, helped move fallen trees and protect the village from landslides with their strength. The bell still rang sometimes, a sweet reminder not of silencing giants, but of the profound connection found when one small, brave heart dares to offer kindness instead of fear, its pure note forever echoing the triumph of gentleness over brute strength.